The next pack that I'm going to be showing you today is the Tangy Tuesday Puzzle Pack 2. Again, we're going to be looking at another third grade example of this puzzle pack. The Puzzle Pack 2 started coming out during the 2017 and 2018 school year. However, those are still, like Pack 1, continuing to be updated with the same puzzles, just with new content, new information in them, and they're updated throughout the school year to reflect the new information that goes on throughout the school year as well. In this puzzle pack, you're going to see 5 new types of puzzles compared to Puzzle Pack 1, and they will be word search, maze, digit detective, number buddies, and finally square. And you may see some similarities between some of the different puzzles from Pack 1 and Pack 2 as we work through them. One thing to point out is that while Pack 1 was more focused on being more of a resource for procedural skills, Pack 2 is going to use more of some of those conceptual skills, really thinking about some of the underlying concepts of some of these different skills and thinking about them in kind of new and novel ways to finish and to complete some of these puzzles. So we'll go ahead and look at the first puzzle, which is called word search, and this is going to seem very similar to the digit detective, or excuse me, to the digi-cross from the previous puzzle, and really it is very similar. You're using a lot of the same types of skills, and you might even see between Pack 1 for week 1 and Pack 2 for week 2, you might even see some very similar questions as well. So in this case, just like in the digi-cross, students are still going to be using the word bank up above and filling them into the questions down below. So if we look at our first question here, 2 groups with 3 in each group, we can think of that as the same as 2 times 3 with the multiplication symbol there, meaning groups of, 2 groups of 3, and we get our answer of 6. Now, one thing that's a little more helpful here, kind of like with the digi-cross, there are only a certain number of characters that can go for each of those answers, so it gives students a little bit of a heads up. And then students can go through down below and try and find their answer within the word search just for a little extra fun challenge. Just like with digi-cross, this puzzle is going to use a lot of different types of skills. So where we just saw multiplication, now with 1 of 4 equal parts, which is similar to the digi-cross that we looked at, students are now going to have to figure out that that is 1/4, so students are still using some of their fraction skills as well in here. They are still using some of those rounding skills here, where 32 is closest to 3/10, or 30 in this case. So this puzzle is very similar to the digi-cross. It's just presenting this information in kind of a new way and a new puzzle for students to solve. So we'll move on to the next puzzle, which is maze. Now in maze, the essential idea is that you are trying to find a path from the very top row to the bottom row by solving some of these problems. And when moving throughout this path, you can never move diagonally. You can only move left, right, or top to bottom. So what's kind of fun about this puzzle is that students have to be a little bit strategic as they work through it. And if not, then that's okay, because they'll be solving a lot of different types of puzzles as they work through. Now, in this case, we are only going to include those problems that have a sum of 60 in our path. So it may seem like this is just going to be a puzzle where students are just continuously adding or subtracting. In this case, they're just adding, where students are just doing a bunch of different problems. It might seem like it's more of a procedural thing that students are doing. However, as students work throughout the path, they may start to see some similarities between some of their different sums or between some of their different equations. And that's where that conceptual understanding comes in, as well as the strategic nature of this puzzle. So I want to give kind of a quick example of that. So if we're looking at this first column up above, we might notice that 41 plus 19 is the only problem there that's going to give them a sum of 60. Now from here, students know that their next part of the path can only be to their left, to their right, or the next one down below. So there's really no point in trying to solve these other 2 problems out here yet. However, if students want to, that's just more practice for them. So as we continue on, we might look and we see that 26 plus 36 is not going to give us a sum of 60. 51 plus 15 will not give us a sum of 60. However, 26 plus 34 does give us a sum of 60. And from there, students will continue working throughout the rest of the puzzle to see if they can solve the path to get through the maze. So as I work through this, you might be starting to see some similarities with some of these different questions. For instance, students might notice that in 11 plus 49 and 21 plus 39, the ones digits are the exact same. So students can see here that they're maybe trying to make a new 10, in this case, trying to make the next 10 up in order to make 60. And as students continue working through, they might continue to notice some of those similar patterns as they go through as well. Noticing that 5 and 5 make 10, so 2 tens plus 3 tens is 5 tens plus a new 10 gives us 6 tens or 60. Or they might notice that in problems like 31 plus 29 and 21 plus 39, the only thing that has really changed is the place of the tens digit, but that still hasn't affected their problem because those two ones digits together still make a new 10. So you can see some of the conceptual understanding that takes place as students work through this. Now, again, this could end up for the student who maybe isn't as quick to find some of those connections. This could just become a lot of extra repeated practice, which is not a bad thing. This means that students are getting a lot of extra practice and working on some of those quick fluency skills. So that's maze. We'll move on to our next puzzle, which I think is my favorite in Pack 2, and it's called Digit Detective. Essentially, you've got a lineup of suspects down below, and you're going to use the evidence from up above to eliminate those suspects down to just one. So you're going to be a digit detective. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at the qualifying information up top, and you're going to cross out any numbers that meet that qualifying standard. So in this case, we're going to cross out any number that's odd. We'll cross out 15. We'll cross out 3. We'll cross out 27. And the rest of those numbers there are even. So we need to keep moving on. We have a lot of suspects still available. Next, anything that has a name with fewer than 5 letters. Well, hopefully our students who recognize 18, 16 realize that teen in itself is 4 letters, so that 6 or 8 that's added on is definitely going to make it more than 5 letters. We can't cross those out yet. Or they might notice that 50 and 40 both have 5 letters themselves, so those won't be crossed out yet either because our clue says name has fewer than 5 letters. However, 2 and 10 are both 3-letter words, and 4 is a 4-letter word. Next, we've got wheels on 4 cars. In this case, students need to be able to interpret what they're trying to say there. We know that a car has 4 wheels, so if there are 4 groups of those 4 wheels, we've made the problem 4 times 4, 16. Now we only have one of those numbers that we can cross out, so we're starting to whittle it down even more. Finally, we've got 2 problems we need to solve below. We've got 9 plus 15 plus 16, which if we want to add those together, we might notice that 16 can be broken down into 5 and 1. So that makes a new 10 here. That 1 and 9 make a new 10 as well. So we've got 1 10, 2 10s, 3 10s, and then the 9 plus 1 makes our 4 10s for an answer of 40, and we can cross that out as well. And finally, we've got one more qualifying standard that we need to solve for. 54 minus 36. In this case, students might think, okay, 54 minus 30 is 24, and I can take 6 more away. Well, 6 is just 4 and 2. So if I take 4 away, I get 20. I take 2 more away, we get 18. So we found the culprit, which would be 50, because it's the only one that doesn't kind of have an alibi up top. It doesn't have one of those qualifying standards. In this case with Digit Detective, students are really having to think about numbers in a lot of different ways, not only just whether a number is odd or even, or interpreting it as a multiplication sentence. They even have to think of the number name, the written form of that number, as well as some other calculations as well to solve for these different problems. We'll go ahead and look at our next puzzle, which is called Number Buddies. This is probably my second favorite type of puzzle in this pack. In Number Buddies, there is only going to be one unique pair for each of these clues in the middle. However, there might be multiple numbers from each side that could fit into that category. So once we've worked through the entire puzzle, though, there will only be one unique pair for each. So for instance, if we look at our first clue, the sum is 10. Well, we might be able to take 6 and 4 from one side, but we can also take 8 8 and 2. So we can't definitively say which of those numbers belong to that first clue yet. We need to move on to the next clue. So if we look at our next clue where the numbers touching are equal, well, if we look at each side, there is only one number that's shared on each side. That's 2, which may give us a little more information about our first clue, but we'll come back to that here in just a little bit. Next, our clue says greater than 6. If we look at the left side of our page, we've actually got two numbers that are greater than 6, but if we look at the right side of our page, only one number is greater than 6. So we've maybe got one part of our answer for now. And finally, our last clue says that it is an odd number. Well, there's only one odd number from each side. So we're going to connect those, and now we can finally see that 6 and 4 are the only two numbers that make 10 still, and 8 qualifies being greater than 6. Now, what I like about Number Buddies is that students may think they have the answer initially, but after reading another clue, they may have to go back and rework and look at what they've done. This is one of those problems where students have to go back and rethink their work, maybe recycle through their work, and think a little bit deeper about what they've done. Let's go ahead and look at our very last puzzle, which is called Square, and this might remind you of Sudoku puzzles, and it's kind of similar to those Sudoku puzzles, but a little bit different as well. In this case, students are going to be working either from left to right or top to bottom to solve problems using addition and subtraction skills. Now, there are versions of this puzzle that use other skills like division and multiplication as well. So in this case, students have to think a little bit about the information that they're given. So for example, starting in this top square here, students may think of a number that can subtract 19 to make 32, but they could also probably think of a number that adds to 19 to make 32, so it might not be the easiest place to start there. However, looking at our column to the side, we can start from 32, and we know that we can only ever add on to 32 to get up to 43. So students may figure out they need to add 11, which then makes our next row in the middle correct as well. 2 plus 9 makes 11. And from there, students then need to kind of make some decisions. Whatever number we're going to put in this top section here is going to have to either add or subtract 2, and then we're going to either add or subtract 19 and 9. So students have to make a decision. It looks like to make the number 43, we need two larger numbers, so maybe we should find what numbers can add together in this case. So we are going to look here and think that maybe 19 plus 9 gives us 28. And we might need to think to ourselves, what number plus 28 makes 43? Well, 15 plus 28 makes 43. If we add 2 plus 13, that gives us the number 15, and wouldn't you know it, 13 plus 19 gives us 32. So after working through this entire puzzle, students have now filled all of that information in using either their subtraction or addition skills. And you can see that there are actually 3 other puzzles for students to solve in here as well. Now, in later versions of the square puzzle, there will actually be one final 3x3 square in the middle, where each of your answers from these squares that touch the middle will then work together to form a new puzzle for students to solve as well. So the complexity in this steps up over time. So you can see that in this Tangy Tuesday Pack 2, there are a lot of different examples of problems where students are going to be using their conceptual understanding of math and these different types of skills in order to solve some of these puzzles. Like I said with Pack 1, this is definitely something that's great for schoolwork, but this is also a great resource that can be used as home as really a conversation just between parent and student or parent and child, and it's a great way for students to continue to practice their fluency and math skills outside of their regular math instruction at school.